What if the door you're praying about isn't actually closing? What if it's still open, but God is waiting to see what you'll do next? Because here's what most people never realize. They don't lose their calling because God said no. They lose it because silence made them quit too early. If you've been feeling stuck, confused, or ignored by God, this might not be rejection. It might be a test you don't recognize yet. So the real question is this: is God protecting you from something dangerous, or testing whether you'll stay faithful when nothing is happening? There's a kind of silence that messes with your mind. You pray, nothing changes. You try again, still nothing moves. You do your best, and life still feels stuck. Slowly, you start rewriting the story in your head. Maybe I missed it. Maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe God has moved on. And the hardest part is, it feels logical. Because when nothing changes for a long time, doubt starts sounding like wisdom. You stop calling it waiting and start calling it rejection. You stop seeing delay as a process and start seeing it as a dead end. And without noticing it, you begin to emotionally disconnect from what you once prayed for. Not because you stopped believing in God, but because silence started speaking louder than your faith. But stop for a moment. Stop calling it a closed door if it was meant to build you. But don't walk away if this is only testing your endurance. Because this is where most people get it wrong. They confuse peace with quitting, and confusion with calling it God's will. But other times, He allows silence to expose your depth. Because anyone can trust God when things are moving. But what about when nothing moves? What about when prayer feels unanswered, and you still have to choose faith anyway? That is where real spiritual clarity is formed. Not in answers, but in endurance. So how do you know what this season really is? Closed doors bring release. You step back and eventually feel peace. But refining seasons don't let you escape that easily. They keep pulling you back into prayer, back into reflection, back into wrestling with God quietly. Not because you're stuck, but because something in you is still being shaped. And here's what you need to understand. God's silence is not absence. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes He is building strength in you before He trusts you with what you asked for. Because what you prayed for is not just about opportunity. It's about capacity. And maybe the real question is not, is this door closing? But, am I becoming the person who can walk through it without breaking? Because faith is not proven when doors open. Faith is proven when nothing opens. And you still don't walk away from God. So maybe this isn't a closed door. Maybe it's a forming season. And even if you cannot see movement right now, God has not stopped working on you. Silence is not the end of the story. It might just be the beginning of something stronger than you expected.